We're going to move on to another topic, which is very closely related, and that's of the minimum wage. So we just heard from you, Mr. Fetterman, so let's go back to you, Dr. Axelrod. This time you're going to take Biden's plan. Explain that for me. What is Biden's plan for the minimum wage?
Okay, so Biden's plan, as he's presenting it, is to have a federal minimum wage. We're talking maybe $15 an hour. And to put this in perspective, if you look at Amazon, for example, they start off their workers at a $15 an hour minimum, and they're certainly quite competitive, quite successful. So part of the argument there is, yes, $15 an hour is a big jump from, what some states and what the federal is doing, which is more around, the $8 to $10 an hour.
Right. The federal minimum wage is $7.25.
Exactly. But Biden will argue we're not talking about jumping from $7.25 to $25. We're talking $7.25 to $15. And by the way, $15 an hour at 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week is only $30,000 a year. And as everybody knows, $30,000 a year that's not a whole lot to try to, live on in the world as it is. Okay. In terms of, impact on employment, there seem to be studies that suggest that there's only a modest impact on employment. Part of it has to deal with, again, if people with low incomes have more money, they're going to spend it. They have to spend it. And so if they're spending more, especially if they're doing it quickly, that increases demand for businesses, products, and services, and they in turn will need to hire more people. And so the idea is, okay, we'll raise it. There's the potential for cutting back on unemployment. On the other hand, if enough people are spending, maybe it won't happen at all. And a little historical perspective is that the idea of having a higher low-end wage, you can go back to the private sector in the early 20th century with Henry Ford, when he offered $5 a day wages, which back then was a big deal, $5 a day, so that his workers could actually afford to buy the cars he was manufacturing. Because he recognized if they were buying cars, okay, that enabled him to mass produce, which lowers cost of production. And also it changes the culture so that cars become more embedded in our society. So, the notion of having a higher low-end wage, it's not just a quote-unquote socialist idea. It was embraced by some of, the important capitalists of the 20th century.
So if we go with Biden's plan, that would be a more than double increase to the federal minimum wage, going from $7.25 to $15.
Right.
Would that not also raise the prices of goods and services?
It probably will raise the prices of the goods and services. Again, it depends on the particular one and how much of the low-end workers, in terms of wages, are part of those prices. The estimates vary, and it depends on how you're modeling it. On the other hand, part of having higher prices encourages businesses to produce and sell more. So there will tend to be a trade-off between having slightly higher prices and having more employment. And if you have to pay slightly higher prices, but you get to work full-time instead of not working at all, that's probably a pretty good trade-off.
All right, moving from Joe Biden to Donald Trump, Mr. Fetterman, what is Trump's plan for the minimum wage?
Donald Trump's plan for the minimum wage is simple. He doesn't want to raise the minimum wage. And there's a lot of support for this, okay, in terms of economic theory and economic things that have been written. First, when you walk into the marketplace, the market wants to set prices for everything, all the goods and services. There's demand for labor and supply of labor. When the government gets involved, it's going to manipulate the marketplace. They want to put an unnaturally high minimum floor price on wages, and it's going to interrupt and disrupt the marketplace. Almost no one today makes minimum wage. There are almost no people who run a household that make minimum wage. Go by any drive-through fast food place. At White Castle here in New Jersey, the minimum starting wage is $11 an hour, and you get free sliders for lunch. Amazon's paying 50. I'm not making that up. It's true. Amazon's paying $15 an hour. The largest employer in the United States is Walmart. I believe the minimum starting wage anywhere for someone who starts day one is $12 an hour. So the market has set a starting wage well above the federal minimum. The difference here is Joe Biden wants to raise it to 15. When you raise the price of anything, as we teach in Economics 101, when you raise the price of anything, people will buy less of it. If you raise the price of wages, businesses will hire fewer workers. So the answer is, if you raise it above what the market has set, places like McDonald's and all the fast food places might hire fewer people, and it might exacerbate and quicken the pace moving towards technology and having workers replaced by robots.
All right. Thank you both for your views on both sides there.